Okay, should we start? Should we start? I have lots of stuff to do. We can do it in an hour. Can pause this guy or? Okay, FabAcademy2016, week 14 composites. Just a little test. Anybody doesn't know what burlap is? Hands up who knows what burlap is? Clean! Lots of volunteers for cleaning. Guys, you have to pay attention in class, because I have to repeat everything again. It doesn't make any sense. This is what you're paying for. I'm here, I can just as well do nothing. You paid for this, not for me. I'm an extra. Okay, so burlap is the material that Neil recommends us to use for the composites. It's rather known as potato sack material. So if you ever buy a big bag of potatoes, that's the material. I guess it's some kind of, to be honest, I don't know. Yeah, I think burlap is a plant, no? So it's something, it's a bit like hemp fiber, but it's another plant. Jute, yeah. In German we call it jute, yeah. Okay, anybody knows what a pre-preg is? Pre-preg? Yeah. So in the beginning of this year, we had a workshop with Airbus, and this is the way Airbus does their composites. They use fibers that are already pre-impregnated. That's what pre-preg stands for. So when you buy them, they have to come in the freezer, and if you leave them outside, they will go bad after a while. And for curing the resin, you have to put it at about 130 degrees. And this is what they do to a complete airplane. So imagine the size of an autoclave that is big enough for fitting an airplane wing in there. It has about 40 layers of pre-preg, which gives you like a 10 millimeter thick sheet of carbon fiber. We do have some leftovers from this, from the Airbus workshop. They produce 800 tons of garbage of this type, which is either the end of the roll or cut-offs from the ready cured resin, or just stuff that wasn't in the fridge and is getting bad. So we might have a go on this stuff, which is quite interesting. We wanted to organize a little kit of carbon fiber garbage that we can use for the Fab Labs, but it didn't really happen because they actually wanted money for it. So the euphoria was not so big to pay money for garbage, but okay. RTM? Yeah. Should we explain what this is? No? Okay. Well, it doesn't really matter because what we're going to do is none of those. We do the wet layup. So this is the moment where you have to pay attention. We mill a mold, a negative mold, or let's say the outside of, let's say if it was a skateboard, it would be something that you could lay the skateboard on flat, and it would have the underside shape of the skateboard. You can have a look at this. But it's the same way for anything else that you do. What you have to learn is the layers that you have to put around your stuff so that it behaves well. Let's start from the inside out because it's easier. So you have your fibers that are completely wet and soaked in resin. But what mostly goes wrong is that people don't put enough resin, and so you have parts in it that are soft because there wasn't any resin, and then this is as good as a piece of garbage with glue. So you have this soaking wet mixture of burlap and resin. Then you put a layer around it, which is a pink plastic foil. This is where Neil said you can also use the cling film for food and just punch a whole lot of holes in there. We have a special film made for this, and it has little holes, so when you squeeze it, the excess resin can squeeze through those holes. And then you put what's called the breather layer. And the breather layer is just any fluffy material. We have a special white foam, or it's not a foam, it's more like, yeah, it's a fluffy white material that is like maybe 5 millimeters thick. And yeah, and this, like if you apply if you vacuum bag it, the air pressure only gets to, well, let's take a simple example. If you have a tube that goes into your plastic bag and then sits on your surface, once you turn on the vacuum, the tube will suck to the surface and there's nothing coming out anymore. So the vacuum won't distribute all over your mold. The breather layer, even if you compress it a little bit, still allows air to go through. So when you have this all over your mold and you suck, it sucks out the air from the whole surface. And it also soaks up the resin that comes through the red layer. And yeah, so this is the red layer, the breather layer. How is the red layer called? I think it's called the rip layer or something, because in the end you rip it off. Then the breather layer. And then you need another layer for making sure that we don't make the whole vacuum bag full of resin. And this can be any plastic foil just to cover it, both on top and on the bottom. And we have this wonderful machine that is standing right there, and where you can see like the wood being done for the labs, for the office. And this makes our life a lot easier. So we can make really big things, and we have a really good vacuum, and we can just leave them in there overnight. And I would highly recommend you to use this one. We could also make our own vacuum bags, which is quite easy. What works great is at IKEA, you can buy bags for compressing your clothes. So you just put like a vacuum, you put all your clothes into a plastic bag, you close it, you suck out the air, and they get a lot more compact. Also, regular plastic bag works. The problem is that the cheap plastic, it wrinkles. So when you suck out the air, it makes lots of wrinkles, and those might distribute up to your surface. This is why the vacuum press has a latex membrane that doesn't wrinkle so much. Okay, and then there's other techniques, the resin transfer, where you pump, you make a mold, put your dry fibers, then you pump in resin. Then you have the one where you suck on one side and you put a tube going out into a glass of resin. And so it sucks in the resin. Normally you do this in several points. And this very nicely infuses into your material. And then you have some where you push and pull at the same time. So you pump it in and you suck on one side. And yeah, actually this in Lisbon we made surfboard fins. So we made an aluminum mold. And we use the resin infusion, like the RTM. So you pump it in, this gives you the best surface quality because you don't get any bubbles. The bubbles is the same with the molding and casting. If you don't apply a vacuum, it's very likely that you're going to have bubbles in your surface. Especially if you mix your resin by hand, there's lots of very small bubbles that you hardly see. But if you look on like airplane quality carbon fiber parts, you won't see any bubbles because they use those methods. So yeah, so we have to mix the resin in a way, or we could vacuum the resin a little bit just for getting the big bubbles out. But it's not a big deal because with the burlap, it's not so visible. Okay, so yeah, there's all kinds of different techniques, but maybe let's just skip all of this and go straight to stuff that we can do here. This is the only quick picture I found on the Fab skates. If somebody's interested, I think we could make some skateboards. It's not exactly what Neil wants. He wants us to do something with 3D milling and then this. It's a nice technique to learn about the composite. Actually, wood is kind of a fiber as well. So you could call it a composite structure, but the fun part of composites is one layer of a fiber, one layer that just keeps the other layer separate, and then another layer. And this way you can do very lightweight stuff that is very rigid. Like the pedals from Sam Kalish. So remember the one with the kayak? Those pedals are perfect because they have, when you bend something, what gets all the stress is the outer layers. So everything that needs to be very strong is your outer layer, and the middle layer is just so that you don't collapse on each other. Yeah.
When you're talking about putting the fabric over the mold, but is it just the details on the underside that you're going to get, not on the
outside? Yes, but since it, if you like right now, the way we're sitting here, we have a whole lot of atmospheric pressure on us. All the nitrogen up to the stratosphere pushes down on us. So if you take out the air, there's nothing pushing against this column, so this whole column is sitting on your piece. And it's about 10 tons per square meter. If you buy a 10-ton press, it's about the size of, well, it's a big thing, and it weighs a lot. You can do the same thing with a cheap air pump and a vacuum bag, and you get the same pressure that you would normally have to pay a lot of money for. So the vacuum bagging is a nice technique, and you can apply, like Neil also said, you can also put fill plastic bags with water and put them on top, but you can't stack this many water bags on top for getting the same pressure than the vacuum. It's quite impressive. One of the problems we had last year was that we used regular styrofoam for the molds, and the pressure gets so high that it cracks, or it first it deforms the styrofoam, and if you have some funny features, it will just break it. It's super strong. So this year we should use the more rigid foam. Okay, so I have like 50 tabs open of like examples for what we can do in composites. One of which would be bicycles. I don't expect anybody to build like a complete bicycle, But for example, there's a design for a suspension system where only the backswing is flexible. So we could do something like this, or you could just pick one part and just do a proof of concept. So yes, we can make something out of that would fit for a bicycle. What you also see a lot is like carbon frames that just have like fittings, and making a fitting like this would be completely possible. Okay, then other stuff made out of composites, slides, like things that you would normally see like in attraction parks or on the playground. Also those little horses that you ride on. Yeah, I bet you can come up with more ideas. This is usually done in a mold out of foam that is obviously quite big. And then they have a kind of like a gun that is attached to a big fan, and it has an injection that sprays resin, and it sprays short pieces of glass fiber. Basically, there's a guy standing there completely covered in protection clothes, and he shoots these fibers and putting it resin into the mold. And this is the way you make those slides. If you ever look under those slides, you will see that there's like this rough surface. The top surface, you paint it and polish it and everything first, so you get a very nice surface finish. And the backside is mostly quite crappy. Kayaks. When I started kayaking, it was still, the way to go was glass fiber kayaks. And they would, if you like fall on a rock, it would break. So this is the way I learned working with glass fiber, fixing my kayak. Bad side about those is that they're only nice and polished on top. On the bottom, there's like the glass fiber sticking out. And if you carry it and the boat is touching your leg, you're all red and you have a nice rash of glass fibers. That's going to accompany you for a while until your first skin layer has grown off, which takes a bit. I wouldn't recommend you to do a full kayak this week, but we could make a small kayak. You can make one this size. You will learn a lot, I swear. And yeah, there's lots of different ways you could make the mold for it. You could just, I don't know how to call this in English, but you make a skeleton and fiber this one. This is the way Sam did it. Surfboards. Another beautiful example for what you can do with glass fiber. So most surfboards have a foam core. There's others that are completely hollow because they pour in some dissolvent that eats away all the interior, so it gets more lightweight. But since all you need for stiffness is the outer layers, you could do it like this. And I also need to show you the surfboards made out of cardboard. So this is a design where you cut cardboard and it fits together. Probably didn't cut it with a scissor, but then you get a board that looks like this, which would be amazing. I have the design for 3 different boards: a short one, a long board, and a medium one. I would love to make one of those, but it's a big deal for 1 week.
I want to do a
skin board, yeah. Yeah, cool. Perfect. Nice idea. Then boats, and again, don't make a big boat, make a small boat. Let's think about like remote controlled boats. If you buy like a kit for making RC sailing boats or motor boats, they mostly come with a small hull made from fiberglass. And yeah, but this is the way the big ones are made as well. Then cars. And there's a whole lot of, especially like Formula 1 cars, and there's some old cars that are made from fiberglass. It's a very convenient method, and they never entered the big market because they don't rust. And who wants to sell a car that lasts forever? So the Trabi was a car in the Eastern Germany. It was completely made from fiberglass, and they're still around because they don't rust. So once the wall went down, suddenly you could see those everywhere. Like this? Okay. Yeah, but also a funny story. When they made the first Corvette car, which also was one of the first cars with the glass fiber chassis, there was some kind of misunderstanding. So they, like on most cars, the chassis is what carries the negative connection of the battery. And so as they always did, they connected the negative to the chassis and were surprised that the motor didn't go. So this much on clever engineering. Then bow and arrow. The high-performance bows are made from glass fiber as well. And this would be a beautiful project. It's nice and small and useful. And or maybe I should run before you finish. But this would be another nice project for like FabAcademy scale. If you search a little bit for high-performance crossbows, it's quite interesting. There's crossbows that you wouldn't believe are a crossbow. You know those things? Like for jumping around a little bit? This is either glass fiber or carbon fiber piece. It's just one strip, very easy to make. You don't have to make the shoes this week, but you could say, okay, this is for my jumping shoes. And all you have to do is like laminate a straight piece of something. Yeah. If you do it from burlap, not so much, but if you do it from carbon fiber or glass fiber, it's going to be super elastic. That's the good part about those materials. No, we're not, but we'll just do it. If you want to, like, I hope that let's say 80% of you are going to do something with the burlap, because also it's super expensive, the glass fiber, and you might have to buy it yourself, depending on, like, if it's a really cool project, I might convince Thomas to buy some. But for example, doing a surfboard is about 80 euros in fiber and resin. Just for getting an idea. Furniture? Sorry? The burlap is a lot cheaper, but we have lots of it. So. Chairs? This would be right at the limit of what we can do with our vacuum table, but I would happily give it an attempt to make, maybe not like a lounge chair, but like a small chair. Or you could make, well, I guess this is just for giving you some ideas. A little lamp out of fibers. Like mostly anything that is thin-walled, we can do it in this technique. No. No. Huh? Yeah, that's glass fiber. A helmet. So you can, many of the helmets you can buy on the market, they're also made from glass fiber. Let's see if I find some more. You buy it on a roll. You buy a roll of glass fiber. You can get it in different qualities, from very coarse to very fine. The finer it is, the more expensive it is. And yeah, it comes on a maybe meter or meter 50 long roll, and you buy it by the meter. Well, expensive is relative. You can have a look at the prices if you want. Then all kinds of suitcases, hardcover bags. If you have an instrument that you want to carry, or maybe you want a stiff case for your laptop, or for your glasses. This is a perfect project, like making something for storing your glasses in that you can sit on without breaking them. Or anything, any other piece of equipment, your telephone. This would also be something interesting to make a casing for a telephone. Or yeah, maybe for a multimeter or your favorite set of screwdrivers.
Bags, unbreakable bags, like luggage.
Yeah. Then this is like a bottle holder for a bike. This would also be something in the range that we can do. Yeah. And then this is kind of like a summary slide for all kinds of casings. In this case, the whole structure is made of carbon fiber, and then this is probably glass fiber or another fiber. And any machine or anything you build as your final project would probably benefit from a cover of the composite. And this is quite easy to make, and yeah, you can go quite creative because you don't have any constraints if it's square or not. You can make any shape.
But it's better if you do something in this shape, like if you present the yellow parts there. How do you place that on the vacuum table?
You made a block that is like the inside of this.
Yeah.
So that.
Yeah.
And then you would cut your fibers already in the shapes.
Yeah.
You would probably give it some how do you call them? Some kinks so that it doesn't fall over when you bend it.
Yeah.
Darts.
Huh?
Yeah.
Blocks.
And Grasshopper has some really nice functions for unfolding stuff. Blender also, like the paper model thing is the same idea. You could do a composite paper mat. But in this case, actually this is a very interesting direction because you could cut the fibers just the same way you would do for the paper mat. Yes, or cap?
Yeah.
Yeah. And then you mill a positive that goes inside. You prepare your textile so that it folds, and you could just hot glue it together, doesn't matter. And then you infuse the resin, you put all your layers, and yeah. I highly recommend doing something like in this foldable thing, because whatever shape you cut from the textile can adapt to a certain degree. It's like my trouser. Like it can go around my knee. But once it gets further down, it makes wrinkles. And those wrinkles never look good. So you either have to make cuts so that the wrinkles disappear. It is possible even if you have like a millimeter gap, the resin will just fill it. It won't have the same strength in those spots. Then you could do another layer that is 90 degrees rotated, that has the cuts in another direction, so that you don't get the wrinkles, but you still have the strength of it.
Yeah. Think about the first you have community, so you will have to do this or something.
Yeah. Yeah, so no undercuts. It's the usual game.
So like with this yellow piece, that bottom edge is a little bit curved, it's not flat. I can understand how you can do it because it has a flat bottom.
This one here?
The other one.
This one?
Yeah, that line.
Yeah.
Sorry, this one.
Like this, if this is not flat, let's say, but it's actually like this, not like
But
this.
this can have any shape you want. You could give it a zigzag all the way around. Since you're just wrapping it, like you have something like this, which is nice and round here. Then you just like drape your textile over it, and the way this edge is formed is just the way you cut your textile before.
We can even place it on the top, fold it, and we see the bottom is wrinkled.
Yeah, and then cut it off. Yeah.
That sounds
This is also feasible. Yeah. It turns out nice if you cut it in the laser, since you have a huge laser, you can take benefit. But
how many layers do we need to make something that's not three, four?
2 layers of burnout is quite solid already. Yeah. Then Yeah, in glass fiber, I would give it, depending on which glass fiber you use, but 2-3 layers should be enough.
Oh, what about what?
The burlap is a bit thicker, so it gives you almost a millimeter thick wall. So with 2 layers, you already have a 2 millimeter wall. That is, unfortunately, we don't have any of the leftovers.
But can we run a surfboard with this material?
If you can?
A surfboard can you do it with this material?
Yes, definitely. I'm convinced it will work. There's not too much strain on the surfboard. Well, if you step on it, yes. But the burlap is quite strong. Try to rip this. And if you want to break it, you would have to rip it somewhere, which is, yeah, it's very hard. Then in Lisbon, we made a tank for Harley Davidson, like a motorcycle. So we milled the foam. In this case, we had to make it from 6 slices. And afterwards, the guy, fibered it. In this case, he's fibered it without the vacuum, which makes it more difficult and more time-consuming to make it so that it's a dense thing. And Neil wants us to compress it, and he's right about that because you want the compression for it to become rigid. If it's not, it doesn't really serve the purpose. But yeah, just to give you an idea, like enclosures, deposits, all this type of stuff. Then, yeah, those are quite fashionable recently, those hard shell backpacks. So yeah, doing something like this, you could do it in combination. This one has some textile and a hard cover, just like going round. But yeah, you could even do, what do you say, if you wanted to make a carbon fiber bra or some, like for example, skiing boots. This is all stuff you could make from composites.
You can also make glasses.
Yeah, but you wouldn't be able to drink from them because it's toxic material.
Yeah, the first one. How do you keep them with the
No idea. This probably, this looks like as if it was cut from some material, no?
Like, can you actually make the pieces separately and then put them into the...
Yeah, of course, you don't have to do, that's actually a good comment. It doesn't have to be one piece. You can make a mold and put 50 pieces in there. And afterwards you cut them and you make something with it. You can make you could make almost anything you can 3D print. You could somehow make it from a composite.
I was thinking like maybe there's like a fold out like this form and then a mold with like small widgets.
Oh yeah, this would also be nice to make something that you then fold up at some point.
We have a sun.
Yeah. You like the edges won't be
Okay, I forgot why I have this picture. This is just composites in general. This is one project from one of my students in Lisbon. And he wanted to, he's an architect, and architects usually spend quite a while running around with long rolls of paper. And he wanted something a bit more fancy than the standard like cardboard box. So he milled a mold in foam. And then made the 2 halves in burlap. So this is what the material looks like. And yeah, it was a big effort. It took him quite a while. And yeah, this is what he ended up with. And actually, I have a folder here. Okay, so this is like worst case scenario. Like, sorry. How did this go? Command A, Alt space. Then this looks like a little lamp. These are all examples from the MIT class. No idea what this is. They made a tent in composites from like recycled textile that they found. Yeah, feel free to use any material that you find. It should be something that absorbs the resin well. So anything that would absorb water would also absorb the resin. This is just an exercise, I guess. This is a little airplane or accessory. This is a cover for a machine, but this could also be like the. Oh, actually, Ingi, we have lots of chairs that are missing the part to sit on. Yeah.
For the car.
Oh yeah. Yeah. We could even look for some volunteers to scan their bum, and we could make the perfect chair. We have about 10 of those chairs, so it would be great if somebody could do like a chair. It's super easy, and would be very useful. Maybe even, can we award a chair to somebody that makes a nice cover thingy?
Yeah.
Some speakers? Maybe, yeah. Yeah.
Sorry, so when you get a two-part moving the speakers in a two-part, but then do you wrap it with fabric? Again, how do you split it together?
If you have a two-part mold, you don't need all the, you save some steps. But you have more work making a two-part mold. But then you would, the layout is the same from one side than from the other, and then the whole block goes into the vacuum press. Yeah, laptop holders. I forgot what this one was. Yeah, okay. Yeah, unfortunately, I haven't seen lots of really cool stuff made in FabAcademy nor in the how to make, but it is definitely possible to do awesome stuff there. Swimming pools are also made like this. This is the one from Joana Vasconcelos.
Yeah, let's make one swimming pool, like all of us.
Yeah.
Actually, last year somebody made, so making water deposits and stuff for like aquaponics, or let's say you have plants and you need a water deposit, or yeah, this would be other uses for fiber. Yeah, I think so. No? Yeah. Yeah, it was standing in Lisbon right at the Plaza do Comércio, and now it's standing on the way to the bridge. And that's it? No. Ah yeah, stuff from last year. So you will see that Neil, each time that he asks somebody to, when he's correcting the homework, or what was the password? Fab. When he asks you to, actually the videos should be self-explanatory. Oh, I think there's no sound because the stupid cable doesn't.
Now,
oh no.
Take the lighter one and hit it. Let me hear you hit it.
Here we go. That's what I say. Oh, hit it.
Okay, hit it. Let me hear what it sounds like. Hit it. Let me hear what it sounds like. Okay.
Okay, so he was hoping to get picked by Neil, and he did this all in one day. Eh? So I think he had a long night programming and assembling his Arduino to read with an, I don't know, accelerometer or something. So and it had like different levels. So depending on how hard you hit it, it would change from, where is it? Yeah, so this is the process. So you make your positive mold. Then you have this pink stuff, which is the protective plastic. And yeah, you can look it up on this page. This is the way it's pictured inside the vacuum press. Oh yeah, and if you have cavities or something, it helps to have, you don't always have to have a complete negative mold. But here you can see that he put some, because since he has these steps inside, if you would just vacuum it, it wouldn't press in those steps because the textile is not putting much pressure into a right angle. So you could make like a half negative mold just by putting some pieces there. And this is the way it turned out. And so this is what he took apart for making the, oh yeah, so it goes from what the fuck to fuck you to for fuck's sake to unfucking believable, depending on how hard you hit it. And yeah, that's one example from last year. This one is another one from Tai Chi. Oh yeah, Tai Chi, he made a pair of shoes out of composite. And he wanted to have a pair of shoes that leave dog footsteps in the ground. So this is us in Sitges on the beach, and he would walk and leave dog footsteps. And he was wearing them quite a lot. Like I saw him a few times here in the lab with his dog shoes. It was really sweet. Then this is Theo's attempt at making an airplane. So he said, oh, maybe if you make it really thin, it will fly. It did fly downwards. Falling is the first step in flying.
Okay, recording.
Slow motion. Yeah, I guess we have to work on the aerodynamics. But I bet if you give it a strong enough motor, it will fly beautifully. So we inspired by some paper airplanes, we made a beautiful airplane, and you can see him milling the foam. So yeah, beautifully milled mold. And then comes the resin with all the beautiful layers.
What resin do you use?
We use a resin that is called Super Sap. It's 80% renewable and natural and only 20% evil epoxy. So it's the most eco-friendly epoxy you can buy. But it's still, like the downside of composites is whatever you do with them, you end up with a material that doesn't compost and that you can't recycle. And it's basically you can just throw it on the landfill and wait for 500 years until it degrades. Or you can shred it in small pieces and add it to your cereals or, I don't know. Huh?
The name was the name again?
Super Sap.
Super Sap.
S-A-P. Yeah, here you can see the whole layup. So there's a...
I'm sorry if you already explained this. For if you have to have two-piece molding, should we put the back part, let's say, over the vacuum, or
it's all inside the vacuum. Yeah. I have one important thing. If you do a double-sided mold, make sure that you leave some space for the fibers. They're going to occupy at least a millimeter or two. And if you don't do this, it will just crack your material. So leave some space in the middle. And yeah, so this is the way it comes out of the foam. And then you just cut the border and you're left with something that fits quite nicely. Again, the mistake here was to use the styrofoam instead of the rigid foam. So you get a little bit of the texture. You can see how the edges are all rounded because the pressure makes it deform a little bit.
So I saw that last year in my lecture, it seems that a lot of people, their mold formed in the vacuum.
Yeah.
But if the idea is that you take it out of the vacuum and your mold is good to just use again, and it should be.
Should be, yeah. The thing is that a block of the rigid building foam, a piece maybe 150 thick, a square meter is about 100 euros. So it's not cheap stuff. It's a bit cheaper than the wax, but it's not that we have like square meters of rigid foam for everybody. If you need something big, we have lots of styrofoam. If you make something smaller, we can use the rigid building foam. This was an example here that we did with the rigid foam. Maybe just for, have you all been to Survey Estacio? Yeah? It's a beautiful store where you can buy anything, but it's super expensive. Have a look. I think a block of the rigid foam this size is 30 euros in Survey Estacio. A shoebox in foam, 30 euros.
What, I think Survey Estacio sells it as a hobby material.
Yes?
They sell it as a hobby material.
Yeah.
But it is an actual construction.
No, I think this one is actually like there's what they call roof made and floor made and wall made. It's like 3 types of dense foam that you can buy from construction sites. Obviously, roof made is for the floor and wall made is for the walls, and that's a lot cheaper. I think it's like €6, like a big sheet.
Yeah, the 3 walls, like the foam, the shoes, ones that are
Yeah. Yeah, but it's hardly ever thicker than 50, and so you have to glue several layers together for getting something thick. Yeah. Yeah, this one turned out beautiful. This is a part of Mars milled in the high density foam, and this is what we made the mold from. And yeah, the original mold is still intact. Maybe at the Maker Fair, maybe you saw it because Milena had it there. Yeah, and here you see the layup again. So it's a layer of plastic that protects the machine. You have to be careful because the vacuum machine obviously has to suck air into something. And if you put your plastic foil all over it, it's not going to suck anything. It's just going to suck a little bit of plastic foil into the holes and you won't have any vacuum. So you have to put something that fits in a way that the holes are still free. Then you put your breather layer, your this red layer, your fibers with epoxy, your mold, and then again red layer, breather layer, and the other layer for protecting the machine. And yeah, then you could take something like this out of the machine. So here you see the positive and the negative. Okay. Gabriel made, he needed something for hanging up his bicycle in his home. So he designed this. So we milled another beautiful piece of the rigid foam for making this negative form. And this is the burlap. So you cut it, and you should have cut it with a laser and making sure that it doesn't wrinkle because this was the main problem in the end. Okay, so here you can see the layup again. So if one-sided mold, you only need a release film and a perforated film in the bottom. This is just for protection, more or less. Then you have your mold. Then the fibers are release film, is the right name for it. Release film and perforated film are kind of the same thing. Like you could just skip one of those and you take the perforated film. I guess like the perforated film, since the resin, actually this doesn't make much sense because the release film it's supposed to let the resin go through. So I don't know how it does it if it's not perforated. Then, like we skip this release film. We just put the perforated film, then the breather, and then another layer of protective film to keep the resin inside. So here you see the whole layup, and this is the way it goes into the press. It's a quite messy process, you can imagine. And you have to be quite fast because you don't want your resin to cure before you put it into the machine. So it's a good idea to team up a little bit and like one person like handles your material and the other one just like, it works fastest if you, with a brush, it takes you ages to get this on there and you have more sticking on the brush than anywhere else. And also you can throw the brush away after because it's just, maybe if you spend like 2 liters of the solvent for getting the brush clean, then you spend 20 euros on the solvent and lost 50 cents on the brush. What works better is just a spatula or a piece of wood, and you just go. And so this is it in the press, and here you can see the wrinkles. But this one came out quite nicely. The only problem was that it accumulated a lot of resin down here, because since it's such a hard right-angle corner, the plastic bag doesn't really go in there, so he had a solid block of resin in this corner. So it might have been better to either give it at least a half double-sided mold, just to avoid this sharp corner at the bottom. And in the end, we cut it out with an angle grinder, and you get something like this. And this completely served his purpose. And this is the way his bike was hanging at home. This is very strong stuff. Like this, you can break the table with it if you hit it hard enough. Okay, I think, more cases and things. Just an idea. What is this? Remote controlled boats. So if you buy like a kit for, actually in Portugal we made a boat that was participating in the World Championships for remote controlled sailing boats. It's quite amazing, like making a remote controlled sailing boat and winning a contest with it. It's not so easy. And yeah, so he also he made it from wood, the base, and then fibered this one. But actually making it in foam would be even easier. And boomerangs. This would also be a nice design idea. I know a bit about boomerangs. If you're interested, I can show you how to make a boomerang. It's also a challenging modeling practice. It's not easy to model a boomerang. And there is actually glass fiber boomerangs, but not so many. But I'm sure it would work quite nicely. Then you know those, the Aerobee Pro, the human thrown object that flew the furthest of anything that ever was thrown by a human. This thing is holding the world record in flying the furthest by human acceleration. And this one is not made from carbon fiber or glass fiber, but it would be possible to make it. And I think I have one in the end. Then yeah, obviously more furniture. It would also be nice to do, like, you see the flexible plywood that Inge is using for making the lamps? I'm sure it would be okay if you do something like this as well. Again, you need chairs. And bending something in 2 directions is very difficult. So if you want to make it from wood, you should only bend it in 1 direction. Like making chairs like this one, where the curvature is in 2 directions, this is almost impossible with the setup that we have. But something like this that just bends in 1 direction, yeah, you can come up with lots of nice designs. Actually, the chairs that we have look more like, yeah, all we need is something like this, something you can sit on. The frame is already there. It's these nice chrome think you saw them lying in the backyard for a while. Making some seats for those would be nice. And this one is my favorite project from Fab Academy so far. This was done by Anders in the last year. He's now the instructor in Hong Kong, I think. And he was doing Fab Academy in the Beach Lab in Sitges. And he made a frisbee. So two-sided mold, nicely milled, some errors. Two halves. They had some problems with their milling machine. And then he laser cut the fabric and he made those little darts. It's also made from the same burlap. Then he calculated the volume because he wanted to know how heavy it is, which was a good thing, because anybody that's serious about frisbees knows exactly how much it weighs. Yeah, and then it's the same process. And he came out with a beautiful frisbee. And it works very nicely. It's quite heavy, but yeah. And another tool, and yeah, if you're like doing rotors for a quadcopter, actually for my Fab Academy I did, or actually I tried to do, or I started a design for a windmill, and I tried to make a composite windmill, which is the way all big windmills are made. Imagine the Autotel again, for like 100-meter windmill blade, which is a pressurized heated chamber. But one for a quadcopter, or making like a little fan, or making something that that keeps you cool in the summer. Soon it's going to get really hot, so maybe that's not a bad idea. Actually, it's a very nice idea. Just making a little fan, or making a little windmill just for charging your cell phone. So you could come up with another. This could be a final project, making the Fab windmill. And this is what the guys in Singapore did. So I know that, yeah. So yeah, they have a complete vacuum infusion setup, and they do like, yeah, industry scale carbon fiber structures. This was made in the same lab that did Fab Academy. So if you talk to Steven, like since today he wasn't here, but every Wednesday at 10 we have a meeting with the 3 labs in Germany and the one in Singapore. And this is what Steven is normally doing when he's not doing Fab Academy. Yeah, I think that's it. Any questions or comments? You mean something that is like a... You could do the trick where you make it with a like you would have to make a negative mold for one side. Or let's say you wanna make a football. It's closed. So you make you cut out a half sphere from the from a block, and then you make a sphere from foam that you glue 2 sides together, and then you fiber the whole thing and you put it into your negative mold. You compress it, and once it's ready, you drill a little hole and you pour some acetone inside, and this will eat away all your inside. So you could make it in 1 piece, but probably it's easier to make it in 2 pieces and screw it together. But yeah, so either you put something inside that stays there, or something that you put inside that dissolves in some kind of dissolvent, or you make it from 2 parts. But you can beautifully rivet this together if you have we have a riveting machine that works very nicely. You can glue it together. Oh yeah, you could even make two halves that just sit flush on each other, and then apply another stripe of glass fiber for closing it. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, like fiberglass, you can screw it to.
Yeah. The burn-up is fun. Okay. Yeah, think about something small. Like, I bet after the molding and casting, you realize that I'm not saying small because I'm stingy and I don't want to waste all the precious wax on you. No, it's just you learn just as much in doing something this size as you do with doing something the size of this building. The learning effect is the same. It just gives you a lot more work for failing with a big thing than the small thing. And what Neil recommends is that we do something small first. And of course, this is a very good recommendation. And we should all do this. And nobody did this last year. This is why they all failed on the final model. So, yeah. Also, if you do something, if you do like a test piece, and then you realize, okay, there's no more time for doing something real, then you will still pass with your test piece because it involves all the steps. So, yeah, don't make your life complicated. Make a, well, something like this. Any questions from Valdauda? Oh, they're not there anymore.